Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name's Adrian, and today, smiley face, I'm really happy to be doing my review of the latest and greatest version of DarkSpace. About 9 months ago, I did a review of DarkSpace, which was a sort of 60, 70 page sort of futuristic sci-fi zine for Shadowdark. And I was like, yeah, this is really good, but I think we're missing stuff. It would be nice to see it grow. And today I'm going to be showing you exactly how much it's grown. There was a recent Kickstarter. It blew through over 100,000 US dollars. It was absolutely amazing. Collaborators from Kelsey Dion to me helped bring new denizens and new creatures to it. The support for it has been amazing, and I've finally got my copy. I haven't got my physical copy. It's in the post somewhere from America. Full disclosure, I did not back this. Than and Derek asked me to do some writing for it, and in return they offered me sort of like this limited edition copy of the book and a PDF copy. So I haven't been paid for this. Well, if you count having a book for free, kind of been paid. I haven't been asked to review this. They knew I was going to review this. If you're a follower of this channel, you knew I was going to be reviewing this. The one thing I always sort of start with the Drive-Thru RPG link. So it will be coming to Drive-Thru RPG at some stage. So this link will be updated. When it's updated, I will add it in here. So it's, just talk a little bit about it. So, DarkSpace, it's the futuristic, I was going to say it's like the futuristic sci-fi version of it, but with this new update, so the original was 84 pages, this is 280 something pages. I don't know how long my review is going to go because I'm already really excited, so I'm going to try and keep it a little bit brief. But as you can see, they've added 200 more pages of creatures, monsters, ships, planet design, settlement design, building your own ship from the ground up, taking an existing ship, upgrading, ship stats. Your ships are going to level with your party, and you're going to be randomly rolling talents for ships, as well as they've redesigned the way that the robots or androids work as well. I think I've probably babbled on way too long. Let's just get over and get into the new book. Obviously, if you are going to pick this up, when you pick this up, please do consider using my affiliate link. I did not, purchase this, but you're going to want it, I think. And I'm going to show you why. So here we go. Sorry, it's 264 pages. Front cover is still the same, so they haven't updated that. As with a lot of Shadowdark books now, what we get is the inside covers are going to have a lot of tables in there, so it's a really functional, useful book. So we've got a list of weapons here, armor, explosives. You're going to see, if you're a fan of the first edition, you're going to be seeing why you need to upgrade to this, just because of the amount of additional stuff that we're going to start seeing in here. Load of ship weapons that you can buy and ship armor. Okay, and it's written and created by Than Gibson and Derek White by DMing in the World Press. So this is going to be like this, the inside. I wonder if that's going to be the inside cover or the full cover of the book. We'll see when it arrives, because I'm sure I'll have some social media photos. So here we've got the new, improved, expanded, ginormous table of content. So we're going to start off, and it's all hyperlinked. Very exciting to see. We're going to start off with a little bit about spacers and sort of the sort of setting that's in here. We're then going to get straight into character creation, the different archetypes, as well as the new machine-based archetype in here. The triad, which is the not force powers, just so we don't have Disney on our backs. A load of new armor, weapons, equipment. We've sort of seen that hinted. Then we've got some random spaces here if you want to create a random character. We're going to get into gameplay, so how we play the game, the corruption, hacking rules, reputation, bounty, new carousing rules. We've then got a load of new ships and vehicles. We're then going to get straight into Starfaring, which is getting out there in the stars. So a lot of the ships here are land-based ships, as you can see in the vehicle section. This is spacecraft. This is getting into space. Go in there. We've got 7 different examples of types of ships. We've then got a load of travel rules, hazard rules for when you mess up your hyperspace, faster than light travel, I think it's called, in here. We then get a load of stock ships, gameplay rules, hints and tips on how to play it. We've then got, I think it's 12 individual settings from a Cyberpunk setting, Sci-Fi hard, Sci-Fi soft, things like that. Tech noir. We've then got a load of random tables to create jobs and salvage, emergence play, which is basically being able to play it solo, if you want to. We've got all the little solo rules in here. We've then got exploration, how to make random planets, names, settlements, cantinas, most importantly, shops, a load of NPC generators, names, traits, aliens, mutants, a vast bestiary, including something created by yours truly. We've then got some inspirational reading, and then a gauntlet, which is a 0 level sort of little adventure to get going, and then we're getting the credits. That's it. Oh, let's get into this. Okay, so we're going to start off with spaces. The other thing I should say is in the bottom, if you look at the bottom left and bottom right hand corner, so let's here, so page 6, spaces. As we scroll through, so when you've got a physical copy, you're going to be able to see the chapters nice and easy. Spaces, gameplay, Starfaring, so you're going to be able to sort of skip through. Sorry for those if that's just giving you a bit of motion sickness, but I just kind of wanted to sort of example how you're going to be able to see, so you're going to hold it, physically flick through, get to the section that you want to. But we're going to start off with character creation. Character creation comes with 7 easy steps. This is assuming you're not creating a 0 level spacer, which is just a citizen. First level characters are going to be a rookie. I'm not going to concern myself at the first level. If you're going to create that, rules are here on the right hand side, and then you can jump in to do the gauntlet, which they're covered in the Shadowdark core rule books as well. But first of all, you're going to create your spacer. You're going to roll your 3d6, go down the line for your attributes. We're then going to determine your species, which is basically, it's technically your ancestry in here. You're then going to choose your archetype, which class. We're then going to define your background. You can either pick it or randomly roll it. Your motivation, which is this version of alignment. We're then going to pick your starting gear and then your ship role if you want it. And that's it. You're done. 7 easy steps. So let's look at species. If you're going to create a human or alien or whatever you may be, you can just be a standard human, or you can do this species trait. So what you can do is roll a d20 or roll a d20. You know, I know you can pick what you want, and this is going to give you your alien or unique special ability or power, whatever it may be. So if you roll a 1, you're going to get this use of 1 triad power. So that's like the kind of force mental powers in here. But you may roll a 15, so natural connection. You get a +1 bonus when working with plants and animals. However, if you want to go down the tech route, so robotics, android, alien, something like that, we have got a divide in between 2. So this is a new update. Am I going to keep pointing out new updates and changes to it? I may. So if I don't include them, don't rag me in the comments, okay? I'm going to try and sort of just point out some of the new updates. So the android is basically, you're going to, obviously you've got an android background. You're not, you don't breathe or whatever it may be. So with this, you're going to get some new changes. So you get a new mechanical trait. So you do not require food, drink, air to function. The downside is androids cannot take the triad trait. Or you can be a power armor spacer. So you're going to still get your life support though, which is good. So you do not need to eat, drink, air functions, etc. But you can have the triad powers. So some slight difference of whether you want to be a sort of power armor human based, not 40,000 type clone. Okay, so let's get into classes and archetypes, as this game calls them. So we've still got the same attributes in the game: strength, dex, con, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. And obviously you're going to roll them down the line and go for it. And then you're probably going to want to relate your highest attribute to the archetype, because it makes you a little bit different. And you're going to be a little bit more competent in the archetype. Obviously, you're going to need a copy of the core rulebook, because there's still, for Shadowdark, should specify that there are, as much as this is a really, really comprehensive book, you're still going to need Shadowdark for some of the rules that are in here. But let's just give the example of the strong archetype here. So these are grunts, teamsters, gladiators, bodyguards. These are your melee combatants, technically. So weapons, they're going to get all melee weapons, no range weapons, all armor, D8 hit points. So these are your martial class right at the front. They're going to get heavy lifter. They get a number of gear slots equal to their strength source, so they're going to carry more stuff. Weapon expertise. Pick a category of melee weapon, like blunt weapons. You get +1 to attack, +1 to damage, and then you're going to get that half bonus every time you level up as well. And then might, you have advantage on checks to overcome a great feat of strength, such as kicking in a stuck cargo hatch or pulling a robot's arm off or head. And then obviously you've got your talent table, which is your standard Shadowdarks. You've got the 2 and the 12, so then the natural doubles, and then you've got 3 to 6 is going to give you something. 7 to 8 is going to be stats. Sorry, 7 to 9 is stats. And then 10 to 11 is going to give you something slightly more powerful as well. So you get that sort of bell curve that we're used to within Shadowdark. So we've got the quick archetype. These are your sort of thieves, assassins, gunslingers. So they, if you notice, they get melee and ranged weapons. No heavy weapons though. They're going to get light armor, a d6. So these are going to be good at sort of jumping into combat, shooting. You know, they've got some advantages here, like reflexes. You have advantage on dex checks to avoid dangerous situations. Never tell me the odds. Start the game with a luck token. After you've finished a rest, you gain a luck token as well, which is always cool. The tough, this is an archetype that's built around your constitution. So these are bounty hunters, scrappers, bruisers. They're going to get both melee and ranged weapons, excluding light weapons. Haha, so you're going to get your big rocket launchers and things. All armor, d8 hit points. They're going to get +2 hit points. Where with a tough character, you're also going to get to roll your hit points on advantage, which is cool. You have advantage on con checks to resist permanent injury, disease, toxins, and extreme environments. And they are unyielding, so 3 times per episode, which is a sort of game session. You can choose to make a DC 18 dex save instead of a death roll. If you fail, the death time still applies. If you succeed, it's going to be quite hard to pull off, but you're going to get what you're going to basically bounce back up with 1 hit point here as well, which is quite cool. Clever, they're going to be off their intelligence, so they're going to get additional languages, they get some specializations, and they're keen to support. So when an ally is about to make a non-combat roll, they can make a DC intelligence check. If they succeed, you can add a d4 to their roll. You're going to get light weapons only, no armor, sadly, only a d4 hit points. So let the clever one hide at the back somewhere. We're going to get the wise, which is going to work off your wisdom attribute. So these are mystic, sage, monks, things like that. Light melee weapons only, no armor, again d4 hit points. They're going to get to add their wisdom bonus to luck. And optional, one of the big things they're going to get is you can swap out this enlightenment. So enlightenment is 3 times per episode. You may make a DC 12 wisdom check. On a success, you gain a luck token. Get rid of that, because it means as the optional trait you can have the triad powers. So you may swap enlightenment for the triad powers if the game master allows. If the game master doesn't allow it, let me know in the comments below and I'll send them a strongly worded email to explain why they should allow it. Unless obviously you're picking one of the specific worlds that doesn't have the triad, like the game that you're going to have. You're just going to want to include it because this effectively allows you to have a spellcaster in the game, and they're going to have the triad powers are a lot of fun. And then finally we're going to get the charming archetype here. Projectile and energy weapons only, light armor, d6 hit points, and as you'd imagine, a lot of things to manipulate people using that charisma bonus that you're probably going to have your higher attribute on that you can go and do things with. So we now do have this new machine-based new thing. So all built-in weapons. We're going to remember that for later on. All built-in armor. You are this full-on cyborg. Technically, you're gonna have your head and your smarts, and then you're gonna choose or roll 3 traits from the special traits table. You cannot take the triad powers because, well, you know, there's probably not enough of your mental capability in there. So let's just have a quick look at the background. So we've got 20 new backgrounds that are specific to this sort of genre. So things like a fence is still in there, gambler, corpo. The ways of corporate world are second nature to do. I always like throwing corporate sort of bodies in. I think that's probably my sort of hashback to aliens, because, you know, they're a pain in the bum, aren't they, to have? So, you know, all the way from a noble to a medic. So motivation. So alignment is gone, motivation is come in. So you still get 3. So, and they're still kind of the same, but what these are going to do is it's going to give you a mechanical way of recovering luck tokens back. So for example, if you're going to pick a survivor, so harsh realities of the hierarchy, dominion, and economic disparity have worn down survivors. They adapt, overcome, and do whatever is necessary. So as a starting bonus, they're going to roll on the citizen starting equipment chart for an extra piece of gear. Gameplay, they're going to receive a luck token back when acting in a way that exemplifies resilience and adaptability. So obviously, if you want to go down that route, you'd pick Survivor. You can go with the Vile. So these are Vile. They've embraced the darker aspects of such as ambition and greed. You're going to start with a little bit of extra money, but to get your luck points back, you're going to be really into self-interest and doing things of moral, dubious actions. And then you can go down the Virtuous. So you're going to start with 1d3 trusted combats. You're going to get your luck point back when engaging in actions that uphold your principles. So you're going to have to sit down with a Gamesmaster and come up with what your actual virtues are. Now, we talked about the triad a little bit, so let's just get into this. We've got 3 different types of, I'm going to not say force powers, but it's technically that sort of magic, mystical power that's going to come from there. And you're going to have 3 different attributes that are going to be affected by it. So you've got body abilities, which you're going to use your con. You've got mind abilities, you're going to use your int. And then you've got soul abilities, which are going to use your wisdom. And they give you some examples in here. So for body, for example, you've got enhanced strength, increased speed, intelligence, and the mind. You're going to affect recall, telepathy, and the soul ones for the wisdom are, you know, remote viewing, calming emotions, things like that. So depending on the power that you've picked, you're like in Shadowdark, you're basically looking to achieve a certain difficulty that you're then going to add your certain attribute stat for. So if you're going down the con point of view, so let's just pick psychic healing, which is an example of one of the body ones, which uses the constitution. So make a body check versus the DC on the triad feat rolls table, which is over here. The result is how much HP the target gets back. So for this example, so if you're gonna roll d20, add your con or take it off if you've got a negative in your con. And let's say you get a 12 or more, you're going to get to add a d6 hit points to whoever you're healing. And some of them will have a standard DC. So for example, inner light here, you can cause parts of or your entire body to glow within the inner light. So this is going to make a DC 12 body check. On a success, you glow up to close range, lasts for 1 hour. You can make yourself into a giant torch, but that's got an 11 in here. So some of them will basically be on this table. Others will have a fixed one. So we've got some example of the body ones, example of mine, example of soul. You can also make up your own. Feel free to work with your Gamesmaster, make up your own. Gamesmasters, be careful. If you find it's overly powerful, you've got 2 choices. Ban it outright, increase the DC, make it harder to pull off, or reduce the number of uses per day. But that's just how that's going to work. We're then going to get into the gear. So we have got some starting gear for the players that they can randomly roll here for if you're going to go down the citizens. So that's your 0 level here. If you're going to go down the spacer kit, you can just buy a standard spacer kit, and then additional equipment is in here. So one thing to remember with a lot of equipment in here, because it's sci-fi related, and it's one of the greatest or frustrating, depending on how you view it, things you're going to get in Shadowdark is EC here, which is energy cells. So this is a item, be it a gun, be it a torch, be it a drill, whatever it is that uses energy. So every time you use it, you're going to roll a d20. Roll a 1, your battery is dead. The example that comes up quite a lot is you're in a firefight, you're shooting, you've run out, you've got 1 battery left. Your torch time is gone because you've had your torch out now for probably a good 40-50 minutes. You're not really sure exactly how long is going on. You roll a 1, shooting something, your gun's dead. Do you take that spare battery, slap it into your firearm and carry on fighting, knowing that you're going to be sat in the dark, or do you just save it and shoot at disadvantage? So we've then got cred sticks, which is a metallical pen-sized cylinder, tracks your legal currencies, don't lose it, things like security tools that's going to help you get through items and stuff. And I think I probably don't need to explain things like armor and stuff too much, but we've got a difference, from light, medium, heavy, energy, helmet in here, which is going to add to your AC, add to the gear slots, and then we've got some properties in here, so it might give you disadvantage on stealth and swimming. If you're unsure of the properties, so like EC is energy cell, so obviously we're going to need some energy cells, so for things like the energy armor here, which is really good because that's 1 spell slot, 15 AC, really, really good, but obviously every time you're hit, you're going to be rolling and it might just stop and then you're back down to 10. A load of melee weapons in here, from sort of like force lights to edge weapons to vibro to stun buttons. Projectile weapons, so standard sort of bullet weapons, as you would say. Disabling weapons, things like ion pistols and rifles. Full-on energy weapons, and then we get explosives. All the weapon categories are in here, from light, medium. As you saw when we went through the archetype, that will determine the sort of weapons that people will be allowed to use. If you're using a weapon category you don't have or you shouldn't have access to, it's nice and simple. Just roll at disadvantage. Okay, so you can roll 2d20, pick the lower. And we've got a load of weapon properties in here. So things like DL. So this weapon is explosive, can be given a delay. So if you're going to set off an explosion, at least you've got a little bit of time to get out of there, because you're not going to click and for it to go. Well, unless you're, was it Lieutenant Gorman from Aliens. He was like, we haven't got time for this. So, random spacers. If you want to randomly create a spacer, either for an NPC or you're too lazy to create a spacer because you haven't got time, then you can do it here. So you can roll your gender, motivation, archetype, colouring, and body type in here. Okay, the next chapter then is going to deal with gameplay. So this is going to get into some of the rules and the sort of specific sort of setting changes that you're going to make from the Shadowdark core rulebook. So there's certain things in here it's sort of going to replay back to. So things like rolling the dice, luck tokens, using stats and stuff, it just clearly says use the core rulebook. We've got some additional stuff here, so energy cells, travelling around in zero gravity and star gliding, resting on the ship, new carousing rules, professions in here, and null points, which we'll get into. I've pretty much covered energy cells and the devices and weapons that use them. So we've got the new rules here for zero gravity, or zero G environment, and you basically just don't move. So you're going to have to physically drag you around and pull yourself around, and so players are going to be mostly moving to near. That's about as far as you can go in an action. There's a little bit here as well, firing projectile weapons, knock spacers back near in the opposite direction. So I don't know why I did that. It's like I'm a child. We've got some corruption rules as well. So the downward spiral. Corruption is a catch-all term used to describe any phenomenon that results in slow motion descent towards a permanent end. This is good. I don't remember this being in the main book before, but this very much feels like, well, I've just recently did a review of Imperium Maledictum. You've got that Warhammer Fantasy role-playing sort of, sort of technology side effect, biological side effects. We've got two different ones. So as you take on corruption points, which may become from things that you've seen, psychosis, dark side checks that you've in places that you've interacted with, you're slowly going to descend to it. You can heal them. It is going to be a little bit difficult to actually get them through, but I don't like spoiling like stuff. We've got examples of sources of corruption in here, which I'm going to kind of just skip across because I don't. As this, whenever you put random tables in, I think if I sort of focus too much on it, especially because I'm going to use only nicely, there was only 8 different examples, so I kind of don't want to sort of give them away. So hacking is let's say it's a mini game that if you're a fan of things like Shadowrun or Cyberpunk, there are times when you're going to need to hack in computer systems, ships, gathering data, anything along those lines. This is going to cover all your hacking rules. Okay, so the main thing you've got is access, control, and net. So access is used as an offensive capabilities, as well as description, password checking. Control is used for maintaining, persistent, activating, disabled advices, and then net is used for defensive capabilities in case you're being attacked back. Okay, so everything else is going to have one of these different things. I don't want to spend too much time in this because I think this video is going to go very long as it is, but depending on what you're trying to hack and how difficult the sort of station is that you're trying to get into will determine the sort of dice that you roll, whether you're going to go from a D4 all the way up to multiple D4s and things like that, okay? It's then going to give you a load of programs that will help you or hinder you getting in, because, and why I say hinder, because if you've got ice in here, so this is a Hound, for example, here, so it's an anti-ice program that resembles a large mastiff. So this is something that the Gamesmaster will write into it to stop the players coming in. So you're then going to have a combat based on the stats, and they've got their own AC. It's got its own hit points. It's got its own bonuses to attack and the amount of damage it's going to do. So this is going to do +4 to hit the player that is hacking in. So you have got risk. It's not just you're going to get in and automatically succeed. So what the Gamesmaster will do is create a data bank. So for the examples here, so we've got network nodes. So these are things the player needs to get through. So for example, just looking at down in the bottom left here, so to get through all the information, there might 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's technically 9 nodes that you will create, and then the player will be going through. Each of the nodes will have a different piece of software that might stop them from actually being able to access. So bearing in mind, the player doing hacking potentially could die during the hacking, because obviously they're going to take sort of mental damage, if that makes sense, across the hack. But It's good. And one of the good things I like about this, because if you've played things like Cyberpunk, especially Cyberpunk 2020, or some of the earlier versions of Shadowrun, hacking could be the whole session, where everyone else is like, really? Really, we're gonna, because you do need to hack stuff. It is quite an important part of science fiction and the sort of cybernetic worlds. And what I like is the fact that this is very, very streamlined. So as you'd expect from a Shadowdark, or I should say DarkSpace. When it comes to reputation, this is, it's not really a meta currency. It's a measure that's going to be sat in the background that is going to be where the rest of the world, universe, galaxy, really, I should say, is going to judge the players on their good or bad actions. Now, this is going to range from -5 to +5, and it's going to have a impact when they do most social interactions with dice rolls. Okay, so they're looking at gaining missions or buying and selling items in a shop or a cantina, interacting with people. Their reputation is going to have an effect. Also, it's going to affect where they are sort of geographically, because if you're a reputation of 1, the plus or -1, there's only really local people are going to have heard of you. As you sort of get into the 4s and 5s, you are known throughout the galaxy. Also going to have an effect over here, as you see, on downtime activities. So when you bearing in mind, do bad things happen. Okay, do good things, you're going to get a nice bonus in here. Now, one of the other things you can do in this game in bounties or bounty hunting, where, well, actually, you could become hunted yourselves, but if you wanted to go and start sort of capturing people that have got bounties on them, all the rules are in here, and depending on the level of the person that you're fighting will determine the additional credits that you're going to get in there. So we've got a couple of downtime activities and resting here. So when you're resting, so wounded characters can rest to recover from their injuries on a ship. Resting requires the spacer to eat either a meal or rations and sleep for 8 hours. However, resting isn't easy in an uncomfortable spaceship. At the end of the rest, they make an interruption check at con DC 12 to determine whether they're resting. However, if you've got things like a bunk or quarters, that's fine, because if not, you're just hunkering down on the ship. And then if the ship's galley can remove the entire crew need for rations as well, so if you have got a galley in here. But during the downtime, you can also go and learn some new skills, which is in the Shadowdark core rulebook for learning, or you can earn some money from your profession. So you can make a roll here, depending on the difficulty that you roll, will just determine a bit of extra money. New carousing rules, as you'd imagine, so it's the standard sort of cost that you see from 30 credits to 1800 credits, and then you're going to make a roll on here, and then you're going to get to add the bonus depending on how much the crew together spend. We'll just add things like additional XP, add luck tokens, enemies and stuff. When we look at vehicles should feel quite familiar, because it's just going to, well, it's when we get into Starfaring, it's all going to feel the same. So vehicles still have an AC, so that's the difficulty to hit them. They can have hit HP, the number of hit points until they're damaged. The attack, the number and kind of weapons the vehicle has, and the MV is how far it can move. Vehicles also have stats. Do they? They do. Now, what these do really cleverly is add to the player's stats when they're doing something specific. So if a vehicle's got a +1 in strength, then if you are doing towing or ramming, you can use the vehicle's bonus to your bonus before you roll. So dexterity is for gunnery and pilots, constitution for harsh terrain, intelligence, navigation, like a nav computer, technically. Wisdom is going to be sensors and tracking, and then charisma is going to do any sort of charisma or intimidation in here. We've got a load of examples of stock vehicles, and vehicle types are broken down to land, sea, air, hover, space, and mecha. Rules for chasing is here, really, really quick and concise, and we've got so the vehicle descriptors, if you want to do a random roll on a d20 here, it's going to give you the sort of style of the vehicle, quality, function, and reputation. So you might have a compact 2-door that's prone to electrical glitches, a bit like the Millennium Falcon. A long-haul transport is the function that it's for. Infamous amongst the law. So it's just going to give you some really fun descriptors. So we've got some land vehicles examples here from things like cargo trucks, motorcycles and tanks, sea vehicles, sea boats, submarines, yachts, air vehicles. I'm going to break one down in a second. Hover vehicles, space vehicles in here. So escape pods, space bike, battle mecha. So let's just pick the battle mech, I should say, in here. I want to do the Scout Walker now. Now I've seen the Scout Walker. Let's do the Scout Walker. Ooh, armored transport, a military class quadruped walker. We all know what that is. But let's stick with the Scout Walker. So a bipedal military walker designed for all-terrain mobility. Again, we know what this is. But so, for example, it's got an AC of 14, hit points 18. It's got attack 2, light cannon, near, +3, d6. All of that should feel very familiar to anybody that's played Shadowdark before. And it's going to move double near, so that's just how far it can go in a standard move. And so the bonuses you're going to get, so if you're going to do anything dex-wise, you're going to get +2t dex. The con is minus, and then everything else is 0 apart from charisma. It's level 3 for purposes. And then off-road ignores chase penalties for terrain. Here is No Point, which is just a little fun game that you can play yourselves. But it's played. It says here it's played in casino, so it just allows you to do something slightly different for the evening, just to break up the session. So chapter 3 is we're now going to get into seafaring. So this is going to give us the rules for space travel, buying and selling ships, upgrading your ships, and space combat. And does this give you your crew thing as well? So this is just going to flow back to vehicles. So all ships, it perfectly keeps this standard and makes it very easy for the Gamesmaster and the players. So ships now have got AC, HP, attack, and move. And again, we've got strength, dex, con, intelligence, wisdom, charisma. The only slight difference, we've got ship classifications. So there are 6 playable classifications of ships: explorers, fighters, freighters, gunships, researchers, and yachts. And then this will just determine, again, the type of ship that you're going to be using. Or we then got capital ships. So capital ships are large ships that command a crew of 10 or more, and then more than 20 systems and features. Okay, all the rules here for designing your ship and how you're going to spend the currency to give them sort of HP. If you don't want a stock ship, you can do the ship design from here. And this is just going to take you through your stats, so the HP equals your 10 plus your con mod, AC equals dex plus 10, plus the dex mod, and then it's just going to design how you do it for all the money in here. And you're going to purchase things like base systems, so sublight drive, communication array, memory bank. You're going to design your ship classification. Or if you don't want to go through all of this with your budgets and stuff, I think eventually you're going to want to, because then you can do customizing your ship and upgrading ships and stuff like that. So the rules are in here, and we've got ship command, crew. So if when you are part of a ship, the pilot, it tells you what the pilot does, the captain, the chaplain, astronomer. But one thing to remember is ship's leveling. A ship's level is always equal to or greater than the average crew CL level. When the crew level increases by 1, so does the ship's level. If the CL ever drops, the crew does not drop. And when you've got a ship, we're going to see here the explorer class. So if you've got an explorer class ship, you've got a slot. So this is what you're going to build. You've got 8 base system slots. The base systems are the important things. So, things like navigation, engines, and to do all your speed and hit points. Your features are fun things, like a cantina, somewhere to sleep, stuff like that. You may have a science lab in there. You will get some components in here, any modifiers to your hit points. And then, so for example, the Explorer class has got 3 different things in here. So it already comes with some long-range sensors. It's made to last. The ship has advantage on con checks to resist damage from hazards and extreme condition. And it's going to get Starblazer. The ship is designed for finding new navigational routes, even through treacherous regions and space. Astrogation mishap rolls are made at advantage to determine the outcome. Okay, so that's an explorer ship. We've then got a fighter, which 10 base systems, but you can only put 3 features in here. It's going to come with some additional weapons. This is interceptors, dogfights, things like that. We've got a freighter class for grunts, haulers. This is going to sort of transporting stuff in there. A gunship class, so this is destroyers, gunboats, assault craft. A research class, which is laboratories, observations. So this comes with quite a lot of more features. And then we've got a yacht class for your, was it Lando Calrissian in the expanded universe had this yacht sail barge, I kind of seem to remember. But say, they've all got this wonderful little talents in here as well that's going to follow that arc. When we are traveling in space, we've got 2 different types of travel. So we've got sub-light travel, which is you're going to use your piloting skill, which is effectively going to be dex. And then you've got faster than light travel, which is sort of astrogating for, well, depending on whether you're going to go sectors, systems, region, or galaxy, will determine how difficult that check will be. Obviously, don't forget, you're going to get to add your wisdom bonus of the character and your ship to be able to do this. And it will determine how many days you're going to be traveling, for how far you're going to go. And then we've got the mishap astrogation failure table here, which say if you can roll it at advantage, you're going to get 2d10 on here. And I'm, again, not going to spoil it. But if we do roll some hazards, we've got some hazards in here that are going to come on this astrogation fail table. So things like nebula, black hole, a wormhole. I'll leave it at that and just move on. Eventually, you will get into combat with another ship. Probably, whether you want to or not. You might want to, but someone is going to want to take what you've got on your ship at some stage. Okay, now this is just going to take you through, and it works pretty much like melee combat or range combat. It's, so players are going to get actions on their go, determine whether they're going to do shields and things like that. The ship is going to have movement, so only on the ship's pilot and the co-pilot turn can the ship actually move. And then weapons, whoever's actually on the gunner is going to be the person that's going to shoot. Obviously, if you get to 0 hit points, the ship is disabled. It doesn't necessarily blow up straight away. You're going to get a chance to sort of repair that ship and get it back to some hit points. So things to remember is when we're looking at ship's properties, AM is ammo, AP, armor piercing. So the targets, it's going to reduce the target's AC. We've got some blast weapons, disabling weapons, so things like ion weapons and stuff like that. So we've got all the cost here for all the ships, the amount of damage that it does in ship-to-ship combat, ship's armor, ship's components you can buy, like faster than light drives, the galleys in here. So it's got an initial cost to buy it and maintenance. So as the game goes on and you're repairing, things will break and you're going to have to maintain and spend money keeping on top of your ship. If you're unsure about ship's name, randomly roll it on D20 table here as well. We've got some ship descriptors to make it look a little bit more pretty or interesting or different. So again, a couple of D20s, well, 4 D20s to roll. We've got some two example explorers, 2 fighters, freighters, gunships, researchers and yacht. So let's just pick a gunship, a short range gunship. So this is going to be it's only level 1, so that's quite cool, but it's got its open slots, open system slots, and it's going to just list down some of the things it's got, and this is going to cost you 6,200 credits, and then you've still got some extra slots. You can go and buy additional things if you want to add stuff to it. Chapter 4 is the Gamesmaster section. So this is going to teach I was really surprised at this section, actually, because having known Than and Derek for quite a while now, talking backwards and forwards, they're very experienced Gamesmasters. They have done this from a complete newbie, ground zero point of view, which is really good. So if you're experienced, you can probably, I'm not saying you should, but you can kind of brush through this. You're going to want things like setting the tone, give you help, with balance and feel and stuff like that. But if you're completely inexperienced, this will really guide and help you on how to build out a sort of sci-fi world setting for your players. Things like this, like space is dangerous. Well, it is, because if you do the faster and light travel and it goes wrong, there's things in there that are really going to mess up the game and where it's going to go. But story crafting is quite interesting. So, are you going to go full sci-fi, or do you want to go science fantasy? Do you want your Star Trek experience that's going to be grounded in more realism, or do you want your Star Wars experience where stuff just happens because stuff happens and it doesn't really matter? So kind of pick which route you're going to go, and it's going to give you some hints and tips, and it uses the examples of this, what if, moral tension stuff, and it's the same whichever way you go. Now, I talked about this right at the start with the contents. We've got 12 one-page settings that, if you want to play it in a cyberpunk setting, it was just like, this is what you have. This is the type of classes and stuff that you have going in. So it's broken down: classification, diversity, background, morality, metaphysical, technology, ship speed, scale, currency, and modes and rules, and breaks down what part of the Shadowdark core rulebook and what part of the DarkSpace rulebook you will be using to get this. So I think the easiest way to do it is just pick an example. Let's just go with science fantasy. So this is going to be, so the keywords, you're looking at things like swords, lasers, exploration, lost civilization, ancient technology. Example: Barsum, He-Man, Legends of Zelda, Spelljammer, things like that. A little bit of description. So it's basically going to, from a classification point of view, we're going to call them classes. Okay, diversity. So you can use aliens and androids in here, so that's fine. Backgrounds, any of them. Alignment, any. Metaphysical, so it is going to have magic. So you're going to have the triad powers in here. Technology, so it's going to have the archaic and energy weapons in here. Spaceships, yes or no, it's up to you. Speed, both. And then you've got any sort of scale, which is you could be anywhere. So, for example, the hard sci-fi, the scale is only planetary or system. So it's basically saying, do not go out into the galaxy and go and find new planets. And then the modes, it's going to allow you to pick, whether you want momentum or pulp modes and stuff. Again, replaying back to the Shadowdark core rulebook for the game modes. So in things like sci-fi, space horror is going to be in here, space opera, and then space western, so that's Firefly, isn't it, in that sort of way, which allows you to go to all sectors, systems, and galaxies in here. So species, often human only. Yeah, there wasn't really many aliens in Firefly. Some hints and tips, really, about running the game, so whether you want to have episodic or serial. Again, thinking back to the Firefly example, obviously make resource management difficult and tight and look after it. I like this bit. Space is big, really big. The most fundamental truth of Space Seafaring campaign: don't just tell your players that the journey will take 2 weeks, make them feel it. Use the immense scale of space to create tension, drive the narrative, and make the universe feel less of a collection of points on a map and more like a vast untamed wilderness. Some hints here for awarding XP. We have some chase rules in here. So this is actually done really, really quickly. So each round, the players and Gamesmaster takes turns describing how they will attempt to slow down the other characters, and then you will make an appropriate check. At the end of the round, you're then going to get some random event or obstacle that may occur that's going to change it. And it's, whoever succeeds may pull away. If they if they fail it, you're going to sort of close down the gap, or, depending on whether you're the chaser or if that's actually a word. Jobs and salvage. So we've got some random tables here. So whether you want to randomly create a job, so that's going, transport something to somewhere, or maneuver. So common cargo that's going to be moved around. So illegal drugs, water, air filters, things like that. And this is going to give you approximate pay depending on the level of the characters. And then salvage is going to be go out, pick something up. So from a random job point of view, so we might have the government wants to go and do a recon check of a planet, and then you're going to find out it's going to be a wrecked ruin and involving, let's say, a business owner, and there's a ship in there. So you're going to sort of randomly roll this out, think about it beforehand. If you're experienced enough, you could probably do it on the fly. We've then got a D100 table here of salvage, and it's broken down from level 0 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 9, and then level 10 plus. Emergent gameplay will teach the Gamesmaster how you're kind of going to want to play. It talks about running a game over 3 acts. So, the initial part of what's going on, you'll then get into the flesh part of the adventure, and then the twist or plot twist or whatever may happen. It's going to give you a few examples, but more importantly, for people like me, it's got all the Oracle rules that if you want to play this solo, you can. So if you want to go full on elite from the 80s, if you're old enough to remember that, you can do this. And this will teach you how to use the Oracle things as well in here, which is actually, it's very good. It's then going to give us some inspirational prompts as well over a D100. But this is actually a really, I'm going to say basic, because I'm used to playing a few solo games that are quite, looking at Black Oath games, they're quite in depth on their tables. This actually is a really, really good little Oracle system that I think people will find nice and easy to use. So well done. It's nice to see solo rules becoming more of a thing in a game. So if you need to create random sites or random planets, this is going, the whole exploration section is going to take you through that. So it's going to, so here we've got the example of location, space, a space station or wilderness, how large it is, so this is going to be how many sort of sites you're going to build into it. Civilization types, you're going to roll 40-20 just to get an idea of environments, quirks, any sort of features you're going to get from there, any dangers. We've got ships and space sites and then wilderness sites as well. So this is like the 4 different tables. So depending on what you roll, when you're creating a site, will determine, is it going to be a sunken grotto, for argument's sake? It's the environment. What sort of quirk? Let's give it a stellar map for a quirk, and then one of the features has got some towering pillars in here. But if you want to get into asteroid exploration, we can just pull up on an asteroid, and then we go, okay, what sort of terrain is on the asteroid, whether it's ice, mountainous, deep crevasse. So we've got some new hexes in here. So that's going to be, this actually works following on from the hex crawl rules in the core Shadowdark rulebook. And then all you need to do is use these tables instead. So if you're a hex crawler, DarkSpace has you covered. Now, space exploration works slightly differently, because one thing that you might not have the rules for as a Gamesmaster, or the ability to do, is just pull a planet from your head. So what we've got here is some steps to what it's going to do. You're going to make a system first. So you're going to determine the system type and the system features that are in here, and then determine the number of planets within there, which is going to be a 3d4 to determine the planets. Then we're going to roll each of the planets on there and the systems as well. So for example, so system type, so we can give it a single star for argument's sake, and the system feature, so it's going to be a nebula. We then got some planet types, so we've got a D10 table of what sort of planets. So it's a single biome, gas planet, stuff like that. And then we've got some settlement types in here, and then the bionome type in there. Going to give some names for planets, some settlement names if you want those. When you need to create your settlement, it's going to give you the number of districts in there. So this is again using pretty much the Shadowdark core book, where you can sort of like roll down your die and see where they all land, do your district, the motivation of them, and whether it's an underhive, low rent industry. We've got D6 tables in here, which is going to determine it. Then cantinas are cool. You're going to need to go to a cantina at some stage, and it's going to give you the name of the cantina, the sort of food they sell, the drinks they sell. We're going to get a similar table with shops, whether it's a black market, high-end boutique, I should say, vendor stores, NPC generators, NPC names in here, the traits, the random qualities of an NPC, alien generators, alien mutations, and that should give you a good gauge of that's your world fleshed out. All these random tables, and now we're into the Denizens. Now these are going to be standard monsters. There's some rules in here that it talks about. You could take existing Shadowdark and fantasy and convert them into sci-fi. If you want to if you want to do it yourself, there is a creating and adapting monsters for use for Shadowdark RPG by Michael Putlack, which is worth getting hold of. Now, one thing I should say as we go through in here, so we've got a lot of different creatures and monsters in here. Some are, some isn't. But things, you've got the black ooze, captains. We've got a load of dinosaurs because, turn up on a planet, you're going to want to have dinosaurs, dragons in here. Now, we are going to have these super denizens, so to speak. So this is part of the Kickstarter project where myself and other creators like Eric Lowe were asked by Than and Derek to create specific creatures. Okay, so these are... Well, this one actually isn't. This is only a level 6 creature and their own ship. So this is a very much Viking, because Erica has written Ragnarborg, which actually will be on my channel. We're doing a live play, I think in about 2 weeks' time. So if you want to be involved in that, come and join my Discord. I think we've got one slot available. But this is her Viking-inspired Valkyrie and the ship that she's on. And we've got, so here we go, Ghost of the Dead Planet. So this is by Kelsey Dion herself. So this is a level 19 creature, legendary creature that I don't really want to spoil. I'm going to show you mine because it's the first time I've seen me. So Zach Goins has got one here, Ed Stark as well. So let's just, here we go, Sagatar by me, created by me. So it's a towering biomechanical Void Reaper Centaur. I should just know this. Fused with the alien circuitry. So I'm a huge fan of centaurs. I don't get to play them anywhere near as often. My dream is to be a centaur necromancer in a campaign, but no one. Invite me if you want me to play in your campaign, and you do that. And this is a legendary level 14 creature that is, the bow is horrible. I'm not going to spoil any more than that, but we've got space apes, space pirates, star spawns, the Starman here by Michael Putlack himself. Bob Willbuilder did the Torum as well. I should say, my art was done by Jeff Whitty, who is ace. So he's done that. And then we got like the Void Kraken, which was from the original book. We've got all the Denizens here by level. I think this is the final chapter before we get into the Gauntlet. But this is advanced technology here. Now, this is... So my creature, for argument's sake, I can talk about this. It's immune to most kinds of damage apart from enhanced damage. Okay? And one other thing that I'm not spoiling. Enhanced damage, the easiest way to see it is just magical items. So if you've got an enhanced weapon, it could be a +1, +2. Well, it can be a 0 enhanced weapon, or +3. So it's just like a magical but technological advantage bonus that you're going to get to attack and damage. Okay, so certain creatures will be immune to everything other than enhanced. That's where this section is. You've got cybernetic implants as well, so you can have go on full on cyberpunk-esque. And we've then got the advanced tech descriptors. Now this is a mix of, I'm going to use inverted comma and bunny ears. This is basically like magic items, but technology-wise points of views that will be weapons, armor, things like that. But they also include all the cybernetic. I think this is my only grumble that I've got in the book, is that I would like to have seen the cybernetics and the items sort of separated out as the sort of more magic items. So, for example, here we've got the dermal plate. The cybernetic implants replaces your skin, and with flexible armor, you get +1 AC, so it is permanent, and obviously it's going to be one of your upgrade slots. But we've then got something like this haptic radar. This upgrade for an augmental sensors uses ground vibrations to detect movement. So, they feel a little bit more powerful than standard items. It's a little bit sort of, I use magic in inverted commas, but the good thing is, as much as my grumble is in here, once we get to the end of this section, it does actually list them by category and in alphabetical order. And I think, if I remember, it's got the it's got the page number here. So it has listed out armor upgrades, cybernetics, gear, ship upgrades, weapon upgrades, and things like that. So as much as it's my only grumble, it's almost as if they knew that my grumble was going to be easy to deal with. We've got some Appendix D, so we've got some inspirational reading, so we've got some literature here, different movies to watch, role-playing games, as well as TV shows. And then we've got Appendix G is the gauntlets. This is your 0 level gauntlet to take those sort of the characters that don't actually haven't hit first level yet, so they can just take them through. Then finally we've got the credits here, so Than Gibson and written by Derek White. And this is the first time I've ever seen my name, so I'm just going to highlight it here because I'm sad like that. Here in a book. I've had a sort of thank you before, but I've never had a actual writing credit, which is, well, for me, it's bear in mind that I'm just a guy with a YouTube channel that is just likes talking about stuff. So thank you, Than and Derek, for asking me to write for this, especially when you look at the list of the contributors that were there. They are far smarter, better, and well known than me. So it was a great honor to be on that list. And then we're just going to close down the book with some random spacer tables, the jobs, the generators in there. So, and then just a recap. I could have told you what was in the book from looking at the last page. But that is my look at DarkSpace, the new edition, which I hope you'll agree is so much better than the first edition. It offers so much more stuff in here. But it's now, I say complete, because we've got the Void Echoes books that are coming out, which are, just a different additional adventures and things like that. So it is going to keep expanding. There's going to be more stuff in here. But, how do I summarize a book that I already loved that now has got so much more stuff in here, other than, if you don't buy this and you're a sci-fi fan, I think you are deeply missing out on so much good tables, creation stuff. That the archetypes are brilliant. I know it very much feels, and I spoke about this when I first did my review in D20 Modern, because it does heavily lean into those archetypes, but strength, dex, con, but it just works really well for this setting. That new mech armor archetype is really interesting. What I want to do is I really need to play this and be one of the triads, because in the one shot we did before, I've got another one shot which we're trying to get back in, but unfortunately our diaries keep clashing. But I'm going to speak to Than and ask him if I can play a triad this time, because it seemed a lot of fun, because I sit behind a screen so much. The only times I really get to play a lot of this stuff now is on my one shot channel. But all the tables for fleshing out planets, settlements, I know I kind of brushed over the hacking rules, because I say, it's like 5 or 6 pages. I didn't want to spend too long in there, but they do work in a way that is quick and fast, that it's not going to distract. And I mean ruin in a nice way. I'm not saying that, if you play Cyberpunk and someone's actually Cyberpunk Red does hack in rules really well for really complex rules as well. But say this is a lot more streamlined. The fun little chase rules. There's just everything in here. It's really hard to be really ungrateful, because I love the fact that it started of a passion project from two guys who went, right, we're going to create this wonderful sci-fi setting, and they did the 68-page book that was really good, and I was like, okay, this is really good, but I want to see more. And now it's just complete. It's absolutely it's phenomenal. It is some really great work. As I said, you're going to need a copy of the core rule book for Shadowdark, and then you're going to need this, and then you're not going to need anything else ever again if you're going to be playing sci-fi settings. But you can do cyberpunk settings. All I want to see now is more items. I think I just want to see more stuff, more creatures, more monsters. I'm going to leave it there because I'm just going to keep talking and saying nice stuff. But I'd say DarkSpace, it was amazing beforehand. It's now 3 times as amazing. It's going to allow you to do whatever you want in space, run it forever. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe to the channel. Sorry, it's gone a lot longer than I was expecting it to. I was hoping I could get this down to like a 40-minute video, but it's 260 pages. So hopefully there's stuff in here that you're going to like. And obviously, when you do pick it up, please do consider using my affiliate link. Thank you for everyone that does use that. Thank you for everyone that watches my videos, because I know they are quite long at certain times. And I'll be back soon. Thanks.